Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go there here this morning. We're going to talk about America's design, genocide, and white supremacy. This is one of those episodes where facts feel like weapons and silence is a complicit accomplice. And the story we're told is trim, tidy, and polite. The truth is not. The truth is messy. It's bloody stained. It's legal. It's deliberate. Now, let's start very blunt. Across the 19th and 20th centuries, colonial and settler governments, overwhelmingly guided by European and white supremacist worldviews, carried out campaigns of extermination, removal, and social destruction from Namibia to North America to Australia. These campaigns had the same pattern: racial dehumanization, legal doors open to violence, and the conscious extraction of land, labor, and resource. One scholar calls it elimination by law. Policy enforced. The receipts are in treaties, troop orders, and death registers. Let's bring it all home right here in these United States of America. In the United States, the design is visible in plain writing. The Indian Removal Act, the Force Marches West, the Trail of Tears, where thousands of Cherokees were marched from their homes into the Indian Territory, and that included indigenous Black Americans as well, inside of the Cherokee tribe. There were government orders, army detachments, and needless deaths along the route. That was the policy. That wasn't an accident. And the killings did not stop when the land was taken. They were repeated in the form of massacres. Sand Creek, where an encampment of Cheyenne and Apardo seeking safety was attacked and slaughtered in 1864. Wounded Knee, you guys heard of that one, very popular one, where hundreds of Lakota men and women and children were killed by the U.S. Army in 1890. In 1890, these are not isolated tragedies. They were tactics that cleared the ground for settlement and erased entire communities. And then look at the Black Americans. Look at us. We moved from formal genocide by conquest to a sustained program of destruction, containment, and economic theft. First came chattel slavery, centuries of kidnapping, forced labor, family separation, rape, and legal property status. And then after the Civil War, the same slave economy was rebuilt in another form: black codes, terror lynchings, and convict leasing. That latter, a system that leased incarcerated Black people to mines and plantations and railroads under brutal conditions, because they understand, according to the Constitution, if you are incarcerated, you're still in slavery. It's right there in the Constitution that there should be no involuntary servitude. There should be no slavery unless or except you have committed a crime and been convicted. So that's what they're talking about, convict leasing. This is how you do slavery by another name. The Equal Justice Initiative research documents thousands of lynchings and the systematic terror used to enforce racial subordination. State power didn't stop at violence. It codified inequality. The Tuskegee syphilis study, 1932 to 1972. Ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about white genocide, how white colonial powers and America have committed genocide on all different groups of people, but we're keeping it Black here at Blacklogic, and how America has tried to eradicate, annihilate, and eliminate foundational Black Americans. And we're not just talking about murder, death, kill. We're talking about environmental. We're talking about health through food, all sorts of things, even with the Tuskegee syphilis study. You guys, there's a book I have in my archives called The Medical Apartheid. You guys should really read that, because during the syphilis study, this is where Black men were knowingly withheld that they had proven treatments. It shows how medical policies and racist assumptions about Black bodies produce death and distrust in federal housing and lending programs. They had the HOLC maps in the New Deal era policy that redlined Black communities, using real estate and proximity and landscaping, denying wealth and building home ownership for generation, and locking communities into poverty and environmental vulnerability. These were not by accidents, they were structured. And the result, a constellation of practice, murder, that force removal and legal discrimination. And when you talk to some people who are all into politics, when you talk to some white people who are all into politics, it's as if they don't care or they don't know or they just like blindly disregard history. We're talking about economic exclusion, medical experimentation, environmental neglect, police violence that together amount to multiple mechanisms of destruction. And we see destruction right here in America every single day when you're talking about white on white violence. Political violence is mostly white on white violence. Mass shootings is mostly white on white violence. When police officers are getting killed, it's mostly white on white violence. And then you show them the government on a state and local and federal statistics, and you provide data. They're lies. Oh, they're skewed the numbers. It doesn't matter who's in office, a Republican or a Democrat. They both are complicit in the lie. Throw the rock, hide the hand. If the question is, did America design policies meant to eliminate Black people as a people, the historical record shows a continuous willingness to dehumanize, exploit, sterilize, or expose Black people to harm when it serves private profit or public policy. You don't have to find a memo that says eliminate them to see the design. You read it in policy outcome and repeated patterns of disposition. And when people say, when people ask why, the answer repeats the mythology of white supremacy. Black people were deemed property or subhuman, and pseudoscience claimed intellectual inferiority. They're stupid, they're dumb, they have small brains, they have small heads. They're like primates, they're apes. Economic system needed the labor. Social control required their exclusion. They used slaves to play at concerts with all the instruments. They used blacksmith to build buildings and complex constructions in America. But then all of a sudden we're low IQ and we're stupid and we're primates. We're all these things once all the work have been done, when all the railroads have been built, when all the roads have been paved, when all the buildings have been established. But ideology without structure is powerless, ladies and gentlemen. The law, the courts, the police, the banks, and corporations supplied the structure. So this episode is not a whine. It's a calling card. Name the crimes, read the receipts, and build the remedy. Reparations, record restoration, history restoration, truth commissions, policy reversal. These are the things you do when you admit the crime and you stop repeating it. We can just name a couple of times in history where groups of people eradicated other groups of people. I'll just give you names so you can do your own research, so you don't just hear me hooping and hollering and going on a rant. German Southwest Africa, 1904 to 1908. King Leopold II control that occurred in the late 1900s and early 20s. Belgian Congo atrocities. That's the name of it. The frontier massacres of indigenous people in Australia and Tasmania. And by the way, the Tasmanian people have been extinct. And when it comes to the United States of America, the Indian Remove Act and the Trail of Tears, we talked about that. Sand Creek Massacre, Wounded Knee, chattel slavery, Reconstruction, Jim Crow, lynching and racial terror, Tulsa, Oklahoma, all the other Black Wall Street, Red Summer of 1919, Rosewood, 1923, Wilmington Coup of 1898. This to give you guys some timelines and some dates. But a lot of times people don't want to hear it from me, and I understand. That's okay. We're going to get there.
Do you think this is a coincidence? I'm here to tell you it isn't. And the reason I'm going public with this, as obviously a white guy, is because, in the Black community, Black folks can talk to other Black folks about this, and they can say things like, yeah, there's a genocidal, there's a racial targeting genocidal agenda of the medical system. And some other person might say to them, oh, you're just saying that because you're Black. I'm saying it, and I'm white. I guarantee I'm white. Last time I checked. This is real. This is happening. The Black communities are being specifically targeted by the medical system. The Black communities disproportionately suffer under the mass poisoning of the water supply. And also, by the way, of the food supply. That's a whole nother discussion. But if you look at the food that is available in Black communities, typically, it is food that is almost engineered to cause cancer. to cause diabetes, to cause heart disease. It is food that is essentially poison. And you don't find the same types of food available in the inner city, predominantly black communities, especially if they're low-income communities. And so the options are completely different. And I know I'm probably gonna get some hate on this video from some white folks saying, I'm stirring up racism. I'm not stirring up anything but the truth here. I'm telling you what I see as an investigator.
There's an overlay, there's an immediate overlay, it's an unquestionable overlay between what Trump says and these right-wing groups have said. So I'm afraid I have to believe them when they say they have direct access to the Trump administration, and we see it in what Trump has been doing. There's an overlay, there's an immediate overlay, it's an unquestionable overlay between what Trump says and these right-wing groups have said. So I'm afraid there's an overlay, there's an immediate overlay, there's an immediate overlay, it's an unquestionable overlay between what Trump.
All of us, something having a certain issues here. Let me dispatch this up. There's
an overlay.
They won't let me play the beginning of what he was saying, that basically there's no white genocide in South Africa where white people were getting killed indiscriminately. There is no expiration of land being taken and not being compensated. He does not know one case of it. And this is a white South African. There are a lot of white people that tell the truth, but unfortunately they get shadow banned and overshadowed by white supremacists who tell lies. That's what happened. I can go all day and show black people that talks about racial discrimination and black genocide, but I'd rather show you from the people and from the demographic of people who commits these genocide, and they're calling out their own people because it's evil and they're not evil. When you're calling out evil and you're telling the truth, that's where we are, ladies and gentlemen. Nobody wants to know the truth. But here on Blacklogic, I'm gonna give you just that, the truth.